Great.
And then we'll say the title together.
Yes.
Okay.
Alright, whenever you guys are ready.
Hi, I'm Pooja. I'm a poet and a writer.
Hi, I'm Jessica and I am a playwright and occasional performer.
And today we're going to be talking about our upcoming show, Thick Beats for Good Girls. It was a bit messy. Should we do it again?
It was excellent actually.
So this is the point where we shout out our friend Dan Pritchard.
Dan Pritchard!
Who used to work at the British Council in Singapore and then for Playwrighting Australia. And he matchmade Jess and I when Jess came to Singapore with her play Shabbat Dinner and told us that we had to meet for a drink because we would love each other. And we did.
We did. So I was here for residency for 6 weeks, and as part of that I got to know this lovely lady. We'd catch up every now and then, chat about stuff we'd love to make together, and at the end of the residency we sat down and we made a list of what would we love to make a show about, and one of the surprising things on that list was hip-hop music. So it just felt like a really interesting thing to explore and to delve into a little more.
Yeah. For me, the play is about is really a coming of age story with hip hop as a guiding force. Yeah.
Hip hop in this story is the cool older sister that we have who lets us put on her perfume and occasionally borrow her clothes and takes us out to our first club. So yeah, it is that a story about how you grow up as a woman and what different forces are out there that can shape you. So we started out being shaped by particular forces from our communities, from our religions, from our background, and then somewhere in there the music we love worked its way in and changed us forever.
For me, like I came to hip hop going to clubs in Singapore between the years of 1999 and 2006. It's quite specific. The first time I ever heard hip hop, the song was Rum Shaker by Rex and Effects that I remember hearing just the kind of like boom, and like I just never heard a beat so fat. But it was kind of this weird golden era of these many hip hop clubs. So like places like Kilimanjaro's or Rum Runners, Hendrix, Cheeky Monkeys, and they were largely minority spaces. Weirdly, like the whole club would be filled with like Indian kids and Malay kids. It's very interesting for me how minority cultures gravitate towards hip hop, and that's one of the questions that I ask in the play a lot. Yeah.
For me, when I grew up, I really loved blues and roots music, but I started to like branch out a little bit and listen to the more like youth independent stations, and they were playing Kanye's 808s and Heartbreak. Listening to the way he used language, I just realized what a clever art form hip-hop music was. It was around then also that I was doing like my first backpacking trip around the world, listening to Touch the Sky to feel brave when I was walking alone in the scary parts of a city. It was the kindling of a fire. That was it from there on.
Cool. I think that Jess and I just thought it was really interesting that a music that is seemingly so divorced from who we are, like we both come from like kind of quite tight-knit migrant communities that have quite strong cultural practices. We both identify as feminists. And then here you have this music that's got a reputation for being misogynistic. But for me specifically, I think hip-hop talks a lot about what it means to navigate your way through a world that is trying to hold you down, or a lot about what it means to be visible when people don't want to acknowledge you. And it's a great medium for storytelling because it is storytelling. I think a lot of people don't think of hip-hop as high art, but like as a poet, like I am quite nerdy about hip-hop. It's not just how it's written, it's also how it's set over a beat, and it just makes space for so many people. Like it's such an inclusive art form. Yeah.
I think what I love about it is that it's a music that embraces imperfection and ambiguity.
Yeah.
So there is music out there that is sort of saying, you're bad because you broke up with me and I'm amazing. And that's fine when you're angry or whatever, but you also want music that says things like, I know I act the fool, but I promise you I'm going back to school. It's really easy to denounce the music, to find the rappers that say problematic things and to put them up on the mantelpiece. But there's also some really progressive change, like Kanye getting on MTV and saying, it's not okay to say that about our LGBT brothers and sisters. That's going to change people's lives. There's Snoop making millions so he can run a football team for youth at risk to keep them out of gang violence. Like,
And then there's Donald Trump.
and then there's Donald Trump. Don't do that. Sorry.
One of the central questions in the play is, what is a good girl? And obviously that means different things to different people. So we talk about what it means to be a good girl coming from the different communities that we come from and in the larger context of those communities. But also, what does it mean to be a good girl in the 21st century? And what does it mean to be an informed good girl? What does good mean, right? Yeah.
And is good something that is for yourself or for other people? So our earlier conceptions of good girl were making people happy, but actually is maybe the best girl you can be the one who is kind to herself, loves herself, stands in her own light, and is the person she's meant to be. I think the fact that I'm very interested in talking about female bodily processes in my theatre. Every time I do it, I have a little bit of that voice in my head going, you can't talk about this. But for me, the fact that it is so policed, especially in my religion, there's all these rules around a female's body, it's so interesting for me. So whenever I make theatre, this included, that talks about a woman's body, it feels quite revolutionary to me.
I like to drink a lot. That's me not being a good girl.
Just whiskey.
Just whiskey.
Oh my god. So I grew up as a religious minority in Australia. For me, there was firstly the sense of knowing that being a Jewish person, there weren't that many of us in Australia. There was a sense of stay within the community, keep it going, build a Jewish family of your own. And as I grew up a bit more and realised that maybe I was interested in a life slightly different from that, I then started to realise I felt like a bit of a minority within Judaism as well. What else could I do with my life? Like, I could actually embrace a whole other host of experiences that might be a bit different to what the good Jewish girl does, whether that is happily calling myself a feminist, which is not yet that popular in Jewish women, or going out and making theatre, making provocative theatre occasionally. I think that's where this music was really instrumental as well. Music that just didn't care what you thought of it, that carved new directions, that really liberated me to think, how can I still be my own good girl, but within a frame that is entirely up to me? I think a male audience is an important part of the show, and to then think about how are we bringing them in on quite a loving ushering through an education in some ways. So there's nothing dogmatic about it, but there still is the sense that if you have a lot to learn about what women deserve as half the population, you're going to learn it. So, but it's done through a loving, fun, and joyous manner.
I think you should watch this play if you've ever felt neglected, or you've ever felt like your voice couldn't be loud enough, or you ever felt like you shouldn't speak up, or you've been terrified of speaking up. I think hip hop has universal lessons to teach about courage. So I think everyone should watch the play. Even if you don't like hip hop, I think there's enough in it to speak to something that you've gone through in your life.
And I think you should watch the show if you've ever felt that bit of a tussle within yourself about the disparate parts of who you are, all the different intersections that make you up. If you've gone, I've just done that, am I still good? Am I still a Jew if I have a non-Jewish partner? I think to open up the conversation to be complex, diverse humans is so important.
Just three-dimensional humans.
Yeah, you can be a good girl and do whatever you want, as long as you're not hurting anyone. I think fathers should see this. I think children should see it. I think begrudged boyfriends who've been dragged along should see it, or people who love hip hop and have never talked about feminism in their life who go, hip hop show, they should see it as well. So I'm excited for a local audience, for an expat audience, for just anyone to come and see it.
Cats.
I'd love if cats came.
to
Oh my
watch the show,
god.
ooh, 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 ooh. I love bad bitches, that's my problem. And yeah, I like to got a problem. I love bad bitches, that's my problem. And yeah, I like to got a problem. I love bad bitches, that's my problem. And yeah, I like to got a problem. Real was your problem. Maybe we can solve it.
Do you want to go to the Kendrick bit?
Yeah, we'll do you a Kendrick verse.
Alright.